Hello and welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Memories. I am Wax the Brain Hussein, joined by Fash, the $1,000,000 fan. Fash, how you doing? It's been a long time since we spoke and caught up about wrestling.
It has been a long time, Wax. I mean, we keep saying that we're going to be more frequent with our shows, but then things keep getting in the way. But we are back for what I'm going to refer to as phase 2 of the podcast. I think this period we're going to talk about till about King of the Ring 1993 is really interesting. And we'll explain later why I think that's the cutoff point.
I'll tell you what's interesting, Fash. Your background suddenly has changed.
This has been part of what we've been doing. So this is me setting for the first time in our Wrestling with Memories cave, Wax. For today's show, I've got our arcade in the background, which shows some legends. I've got the red light for Wrestling with Memories. I've got it with the black, which is our logo. I've been sitting here. We've been building this in the background. So episode 1, it kind of fits in quite nicely with the phase 2 I'm talking about. And you're, of course, sitting in your brainstorming pad, which you have been since the beginning. So yeah, something to really add a little bit more spice to our shows and bring more nostalgia.
If anybody's thinking we're not taking this seriously, just have a look at that. Fash has built a Wrestling with Memories cave for our show going forward. Looking forward to making use of that. But yeah, Fash, why do we call this phase 2?
I call it phase 2 because this is really that post Summerslam. Everything we were really building up was to Summerslam 1992. But post that event, there's going to be so many changes, and we've kept referring to these changes. But there's going to be some decisions that Vince McMahon is going to make deliberately, and there's probably going to be some decisions which are really thrust upon him because of what's happening behind the scenes. And we'll talk about that. I mean, so far post Summerslam, we've mentioned this. Look at the guys that are no longer here. Hulk Hogan's not here right now. Roddy Piper's gone. Jake the Snake Roberts. The LOD we mentioned in our SummerSlam review episode, they're gone, and they're not going to be the last ones. And there's going to be some major changes in terms of who's going to be at the top of the card. And I think Vince McMahon is going to and fro between what he really wants to do up to that point. And as I say, when we get into 1993 in that summer period, I'll maybe explain a little bit more why I think this is really what this phase 2 is from, this period to 1993 summer period, when then he starts on another search for his next Hulk Hogan. But we're past SummerSlam 1992. You and I were really extreme in our fandom at this point, and we're going to cover this really, really interesting period where everything is going to change. And I think on a daily basis, everybody was talking about what's going on in the wrestling playgrounds. I say wrestling playgrounds because it just seemed like in playgrounds, everybody was kind of play fighting as well if they weren't playing football. But yeah, let's kick it off. I mean, we reviewed SummerSlam. You can check out in the archives. But the big news really coming out of that was we've got a new Intercontinental Champion. It's the British Bulldog. But the WWF title picture is really interesting, Wax. Warrior Macho Man had that epic clash, but Ric Flair and Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect, disrupted that. So we've left the event with, looks like Warrior and Macho Man as allies. Macho Man is still the champion, but Ric Flair did allude to his plan B, with plan A not working at SummerSlam.
Couple of weeks into the post SummerSlam period, and we get a huge change in the world title picture. But let's just build up to it and introduce a new character, somebody we talked a little bit about just before SummerSlam, and that's Razor Ramon, who comes out very quickly calling out Macho Man, talking about him wanting to be the new world champion. We've got a primetime segment with Macho Man interviewing with Mean Gene. He applauds the Warrior for his help at the end of SummerSlam 92, at the end of their match, I should say. And during that interview, it's the first time we see Razor Ramon coming out face to face with Macho Man. And he says a couple of great lines. He goes, "He wears the gold. I'm going to take that gold. I oozing machismo," which is something Fash says to himself every night.
Every day, every moment, yeah.
And then he gets that iconic toothpick in Macho Man's face, which leads Macho Man to punch the likes out of Razor Ramon, and that brings the...
Well, before that, because I think Razor was excellent here, but I think before he punches him, I think Macho Man says something like, "I think you dropped your toothpick," and he kind of bends down and then he punches him and knocks him off the podium. So I think Macho Man never wanted to be upstaged. But Wax, I mean, we've talked about The Undertaker and the massive push he got when he came in. Scott Hall, as I say, before SummerSlam, had those amazing vignettes. He had a debut match on Superstar. He's been pushed right to the top here. So Vince McMahon's really backing this character and this wrestler coming in straight away at the top of the card, which I think a lot of people forget. This big push that Razor Ramon got in this 92 period into early 1993, coming in straight at the top of the card.
Yeah, I hadn't actually remembered the first few weeks of the post SummerSlam period, and you're perfectly right. I think he had a great look, didn't he? The size aspect, he was quite a tall guy, and just the general sort of charisma that he had.
The Tony Montana thing, the attitude, the gold. He just played this character perfectly.
Yeah, one thing I'm going to say that really annoyed me about this character is he talks so slowly, getting through.
I think that was the best part, man. It was like he's just so relaxed and lazy. It's amazing.
Yeah, a bit too relaxed for me. I had to fast forward through some of those, but yeah, this quickly leads into what we're going to talk about today, and that's the title change. There's a match scheduled, a rematch of the WrestleMania that we had earlier this year with Ric Flair taking on Macho Man the champion. A lot of stuff happens in that match, and we'll talk a little bit about that in more detail, and especially the ending. But at this point, only 2 weeks in, let's say past SummerSlam, to have a title match on primetime, that's very rare.
It is very rare, and it's interesting because this is the period where everything gets taped, and the first Superstars actually after SummerSlam, you can tell it's taped because the LOD are on it, and they're kind of referring to SummerSlam, but you can tell the wrestlers have shot this previously. As you say, this was really odd because initially people were thinking this would be a rematch at SummerSlam, right? And then post that, you think, okay, Ric Flair's going for the title, though at SummerSlam in his promo, he's very much focused on the Warrior. For this match to be on primetime and not be on an event or a Saturday night's main event was really odd for the time. And certainly you wouldn't have known about this unless you caught the episodic TV afterwards. I mean, I remember at the time we heard about this via Superstars. So once again, it was the chat saying, "Oh, by the way, Ric Flair is the champion again," just because it wasn't signposted at all.
Yeah, another really interesting point about this match is this is the famous match that they had to be redone, basically, because initially when they were having the match and it was all being taped, Vince had the match stopped. I can't remember who it was that walked in and told them these guys need to get off. I think they brawled their way to the backstage because he was so unhappy with their effort, which is very rare for a Macho Man match or a Ric Flair match, that it would be that bad that that somebody would have to stop it.
This is really humiliating, right? I mean, let's get into this a little bit because this is probably my favorite topic to talk about in this. But yeah, for Vince McMahon just to stop a match midway and call the guys back, and I think there's been mixed stories. I think people were saying that maybe it was Bobby Heenan that came out and he kind of did the kind of cut signal and they were confused and went to the back. And Ric Flair certainly talked about this in his autobiography or his biography. I guess somebody else would have ghostwritten it, saying that he's kind of blamed it on Macho Man not wanting to do business, him not being fond of Scott Hall and just not being able to cooperate with him. Though I think at this point, and it'll lead into what's going to happen, Vince McMahon's maybe lost a bit of confidence in general in Ric Flair. He's not got a match at SummerSlam. He's going to get the title here, but to call them back, and can you imagine what the audience was to be thinking at this point? They would have been so confused. Yep. Why are these guys wrestling, going back and then coming back and having a match? But as you say, Vince wasn't happy in the back. I think he says something like, "This is not the match I laid out." Basically choose them both out. They go out again, and then they film the match that should have been, and it's edited together.
Yep.
And it's thrown in prime time wrestling. But I'll let you talk about the match a bit more. But I think this is really interesting for the times for something like this to happen, and just shows Vince McMahon maybe not the cool cucumber at this point with all the other things going on in his life.
Yeah, I mean, we know Vince loves to make sure something is produced really well and edited really well. I don't think he's that worried about whether it's a great 5-star wrestling match more than how it all comes off to the, not necessarily even the audience there, but on TV. Yeah. And actually, you could tell that you made a good point about the audience. They were very flat for what is a world title match.
Yeah.
And actually, even now you don't get to see the full match start to finish. It's really just a piecemeal. But really, the most interesting thing is towards the end of the match. And actually, one thing we should point out, Macho Man's still really selling the leg injury that he suffered at SummerSlam, and that's really going to pay towards the end of the match. We get to, I think, towards the very end when we see Razor Ramon coming through the crowd, and he attacks Macho Man, who's on the outside of the ring, on that injured knee, and that really causes further problems for Macho Man, who's rolled into the ring, into a figure four by Ric Flair, and Macho Man is basically passes out. So before we had Bret Hart, Stone Cold, we had it here. Everything is repeated and repeated, as we all know in the wrestling industry. But it was a way to protect Macho Man from tapping out or being pinned to Ric Flair. And you can imagine it probably was something requested by the talent in this case.
Yeah, it's odd when I see even the referee, the way they end, he's quite reluctant and he checks on him and then there's a 3 count and Ric Flair is the champion again. But as you say, with outside interference, they already got the storyline from SummerSlam of the injured knee. It seems like he is being protected. And obviously the dastardly heels that this is their plan B. Razor Ramon's involved and we've got a new champion. But as you say, it's just a weird atmosphere. And this title change happens, but it's all very odd.
Yeah, I want to pick out a couple of specific questions for you, Fash, but let's just run through what happens afterwards. The Ric Flair Mr. Perfect, they head to the back. There's do a little promo with Mean Gene, and Razor Ramon joins them for a bit, and then he decides to go back out to the ring and beat the crap out of Macho Man some more, which I thought was pretty funny. It's Ric Flair's second title win, and it's probably just about a year to when he joined, maybe 11 months or so. So it's an interesting first year for Ric Flair, but let's just go back a little bit to the actual Macho Man the titles coming off Macho Man. Why do you think that happened so soon after SummerSlam?
Yeah, it's a tough one, really. I think there's different stories probably here. Macho Man, if you remember the start of this feud, Elizabeth and Macho Man were together, and they're feuding with Ric Flair. Then Elizabeth disappears. Now they were obviously in real life. We've talked about this. They got divorced, and with Elizabeth being away, I think there's some rumors that time Macho Man, head maybe wasn't totally in the game, and maybe Vince McMahon, just didn't have the same level of trust. Obviously, they didn't main event against each other. And then you have the SummerSlam match, which was epic. And I guess at that point, you were thinking would Warrior win the title, but they kept Savage strong. It's just really odd. I think it's just the fact that there was something missing now. See, when they had Elizabeth there, this feud was super hot, but without her, there was just something missing. And with the Macho Man as well, I think he was still super over with the crowd. But somewhere at this point, as I say, Vince McMahon seems to be going sour on various people, and two of them that you can really see is going sour on are the Macho Man and Ric Flair. So maybe it was through the Elizabeth side of things. I mean, have you got any alternative?
Well, I certainly think the age aspect, both were 40 or just over, I think. Certainly the age aspect played a part, I think. And if you even look a year before this, Macho Man was in a period of retirement, in essence. So it's almost as if they were putting him out to pasture well before.
Well, we're going to know what's going to happen.
The Macho Man was taken out of the ring on comms. Vince thought he was too old to wrestle. Macho Man thought, he had lots more to give.
Yeah, well, that's going to come, isn't it? But you're right, this could be the beginning of it. But, it's really interesting you say about their ages. Whereas when you look at the WWE of today and, at that point, somebody's 40 and they were seen as over the hill. And now you look at guys that are in their 50s and, even older, and they're seen as the top players. It just shows the different mentality. I mean, at the same time, it's interesting what you're saying because, and we'll talk about it when we talk about the other things going on, but there's going to be promo starting of Bob Backlund during this period where they kind of say he's coming back and he's in his 40s and he's going to be looking to be a champion again. So they're really pushing that age aspect there. So I think you've got a point. I think there's probably a lot of things going on. I say there's a steroid trial in the background, though Macho Man actually, if you think about it, is a good figurehead to be your champion. But the age factor, and I think Macho Man just having things going on in the background, maybe not the best frame of mind, all that's probably added to it. I still feel that what Vince wanted was Ric Flair against the Ultimate Warrior at this point, because he thinks that's where the money's at. And certainly, say Flair's promo at SummerSlam and post this win is going to allude to that. So I think maybe it was just, get the title off Macho Man to a heel who then faces a bigger baby face. But, I think at this point they were kind of just shuffling around and not really sure what they were going to do.
Yeah. I mean, the second interesting point of which I noted earlier, obviously Ric Flair's second title win just over a year or just under a year in. How would you rate his sort of first year in the WWF?
I think this could be a show on its own, couldn't it, really, when you think about it, Ric Flair? I think started off really hot. I think when you think about Ric Flair's run here, even now, everyone talks about Royal Rumble 1992. Yeah. And it seems they forget about what happened before, outside of coming with the NWA title, and they kind of forget about what happened after Royal Rumble, and they talk about WrestleMania a little bit. I think it's definitely a hit and a miss. I think when he came in, there was that lack of education. We've talked about this before, and go in the archives, we've covered all of this from his jump to everything that's happened month by month. But I think that education was required for the WWF crowd, for people that didn't know Ric Flair. But he got past that great performance at the Rumble. But even post that, I think, WrestleMania, double main event, we didn't get Hogan versus Flair. And then after losing the title, I say he's floundering. I don't know why, because he's still great in terms of the promos when he's in the ring. But I would actually say it was a bit of a middle of the road at this point, because I say he wasn't at the biggest show post WrestleMania,
Yeah.
and now he's won the title. So now you're probably thinking, okay, now he's going to go again. But at this point, I'd probably say thumbs in the middle. And you were a big Ric Flair fan, right? At this point, you were a huge Ric Flair fan as a kid, so you're always loving what he's doing. But it just seems like, this summer is kind of lost up to this point where he wins the title. And maybe now we're going to see another phase of Ric Flair and, Mr. Perfect and Bobby Heenan. But
I certainly think from a business point of view, you're right. It was definitely a middle of the road and they maybe didn't get the best out of him. I think, however, winning a Royal Rumble, winning 2 titles, I thought it was a stellar year in the ring, and he was certainly not kept away from TV for very long. So he was always there.
You say stellar, but outside of the Royal Rumble, which was outstanding performance, and the Macho Man match, there's nothing really else, is there?
Well, there's that. There's no big match because they only have 4.
I mean, this was. I think the issue was that obviously Ric Flair's the great worker, right? And even today people talk about it. But and in this company where there's beasts and monsters. Yeah. I'm not sure if he was able, and there's going to be other things coming out we talk about in the coming weeks. We don't want to be spoiling everything, but in terms of his condition as well. But I don't know. I say what he did promo wise, he was brilliant with the whole Elizabeth thing and what have you. But it just felt like he was jumping from one thing to the next. And I think that the shine, the bloom was coming off the rose, if that's the right term. But I think overall, as you're right, you won the Royal Rumble, right? Which is still people consider as the greatest Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
And he's a 2-time champion. But I don't know, maybe because now in hindsight, we look at it was Ric Flair and how this is going to end up, it's a little bit disappointing. But yeah, he was the number 1 heel at this point in the company.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about what happens, in the following couple of weeks.
Before you move to the week, sorry, Wax, just to interrupt you. Obviously, you said the Razor Ramon comes out and he beats up Macho Man. Some officials come, Razor leaves, but it's actually the Ultimate Warrior that comes out then. Yeah, that was the thing. So, in his street clothes, as Vince McMahon says, and he then picks up the Warrior as if, picks up Macho Man, just like Macho Man hoisted up Elizabeth the previous year, and he kind of carries the Macho Man to the back, which then, I guess demonstrates to the crowd that these two are, he helped him at SummerSlam. He's came out and helped him again. It's this real kind of underlining the friendship between these two. So that was probably an important part. Yeah. There was a post-match angle and then another angle, I guess, with these two coming together.
Yep, and it wasn't until the September 19th edition of Superstars where we see Macho Man again in an interview with Mean Gene, and he comes out wearing an Ultimate Maniacs knee pad, which we don't really know what it is, but it seems like it's something that Ultimate Warrior has gifted him. That's what I thought initially when I seen it. Gets a huge ovation from the crowd, and he says specifically, the Warrior, he's the greatest friend I could ever have. I'm not sure about that. I don't think many people class Warrior as a friend.
Well, I'm going to jump in there. I think Warrior and Savage, unless I'm going to tell everyone to go and check out shoot, because I think these two actually, outside the kayfabe and the jokes, actually remain friends till the end. But you're right. I mean, there's some things that Warrior's going to say in these promos. He's talking about forever and what have you. It's not even going to last till the end of the year. It's unfortunate. But I think, everyone hates the Warrior, but I don't think Savage ever said anything bad about the Warrior.
And actually, Warrior, their personalities on screen certainly matched a little bit, and they were both.
Yeah. So I think these two were friends, and they weren't really politicians, both of them, despite what people say.
And they're certainly shifting focus away from Macho Man and Ric Flair to Macho Man, Razor Ramon, and Warrior and Ric Flair. So that's the idea, isn't it? That's where they're heading.
Yeah.
I love how they end this promo though. It's Macho Man with his typical "ooh yeah," followed by
pretty good
dig it by Ultimate Warrior.
That was probably an English guy doing the dig it. The first bit was really good. The dig it you can practice.
Yeah, that was the Warrior edition of dig it, which ended that particular promo. So I mean, and then we go,
and he gives him the glasses, doesn't he? That's the big bit here. He gives him these Ultimate Maniac sunglasses, and Warrior puts them on, and then they kind of end the promo. And I've got to say, as kids, that gave us the chills. I think even when you watch it now, it's an exciting moment. These two amazing characters coming together. What would be, as you've signposted, the beginning of officially the Ultimate Maniacs, the Ultimate Warrior, and the Macho Man coming together, and what is the craziest, wackiest, and I think best tag team in history. It's not about spot monkeys. It's not about in-ring work. Two amazing characters coming together. This was a big part. I think when we think about our childhood, everyone talked about the Ultimate Maniacs coming together.
Yeah, and we want to do a special show on them separately.
Yeah, I
So,
think our next show probably will focus on them.
Yeah.
That because this was kind of the beginning, but what did it really mean, and what was it going to lead to? But we see very much Razor Ramon now is an ally of Ric Flair and Mr. Perfect, and officially the Warrior and the Macho Man are a tag team. But at the same time, as you say, Warrior has his sights on the WWF champion, and Macho Man has got a real blood feud, it seems, with Razor Ramon, who's cost him the title.
Yeah, I mean, we'll come back to what happens later, for future episodes. But for me,
Yeah.
this period of '92, late '91, I found the whole World Championship seem really interesting. I have to say, so they had Taker, Undertaker, and Hogan, obviously, towards the end of the previous year. Ric Flair, Macho Man, through most of this year, introducing the Warrior and Razor Ramon. So I actually think the world title scene was always quite interesting throughout this whole sort of last year, and I really enjoyed watching all of these guys, in what I would say is still their prime.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, these guys, I say Razor Ramon's got a young one thrust right to the top. But yeah, with Ric Flair is, still new to the WWF audience, and we know he's going to wrestle for a number of years. Macho Man, too, as I say, Warrior, these guys are in their prime. Vince McMahon, as we know, will have different views. But yeah, it's just these, mix of established faces and villains, and with Hulk Hogan being out, trying to go into different directions, I guess, and seeing what will stick. So it was really interesting. And certainly at this point, the next pay-per-view, this is all on the road to Survivor Series 1992. And we're starting to think about, as fans, what is that card going to look like? What is the main event going to look like? So I think, when we think about SummerSlam, and as you say, the few weeks after it, this September, October period, there's so much that's going to happen. And straight away, they've established a new champion, new forces taking each other on. And we've not even talked about any of the other guys, and there's various things going on. So it's certainly an exciting period, and it's just going to keep. I mean, this was a time where literally you couldn't miss a week because something was going to happen. And this is, us being kids, no dirt sheets, no internet, obviously. So it's just fascinating how things are going to develop. But right now, as you say, if you're a fan, you're thinking we're going in a certain direction, and there shouldn't be anything stopping you from thinking that. So, we're thinking there's going to be a big epic title match, and there's going to be a big feud, and Survivor Series is coming. So are we going to have a traditional 4-on-4, or is something else going to happen? We'll find out in the weeks after these angles.
Yeah, I think a great way to start off phase 2, Fash, talking about Macho Man, Warrior, Ric Flair, Razor Ramon, the big cats of '92. And what an interesting period, as you've noted so many times. We've got so much to look forward to. The Ultimate Maniacs. We've got look at Bret Hart, hopefully coming into his own this year. And then obviously Survivor Series later on in the piece as well. And not to forget all the scandals that WWF had to put up with in '92. We've been saying the word scandal so many times, but it will be a scandal if we don't get an episode out on that.
Well, this is it. As you say, Wax, because a lot of what we're going to see on screen is predicated by what's happening with the scandal. And, Vince McMahon, his steroid scandal. I think the other stuff that happened impacted audiences maybe in terms of who's viewership, but it's really the steroid controversy that is going to inform his decisions over this period. So yeah, we need to do an episode to give that context, certainly as we talk about Bret Hart. And that is something, when we get to it, nobody, I don't care who you are, nobody saw that coming, right? At this point, I say we think the title picture is going to be a certain way, but things are going to change in October. So yeah, certainly these episodes that we're going to do, focusing on the Ultimate Maniacs, Bret Hart's first title victory, and everything else that was crazy about this kind of end of 1992 period. Really looking forward to discussing all of that in our coming episodes. And I guess we've got to promise everyone, Max, that we are going to, be more, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for, frequent in what we, dish out, because we've been talking about it, I think, been really busy, but now we're very much focused to take things forward and in the same intricate detail that we have been since episode 1.
Yeah, I don't know why it takes us so long to do it, Fash. I love doing it. I love talking about the 90s wrestling scene. It was definitely an era that we grew up on and loved watching at the time. But let's leave it there for now, Fash. We'll see everybody next week, hopefully, if we stick to our promises. Until then, this has been Wrestling with Memories.
And Wax, before you close off, I expect you to be over here soon. I challenge you to a match using the WrestleFest arcade, the big battle. Maybe we can record it one day as well. We'll play some old school games with bad animation. It's all about being retro. We talk about nostalgia and retro stuff. So there's a challenge waiting for you as well. I'm already the world podcasting champion. I'm also going to be the WrestleFest champion. Nobody's going to stop me. But as you say, let's close the episode now. As ever, he's Wax, I'm Fash, and this is Wrestling with Memories.